the law. So I think in the end what we're going to see is a report that lays out a lot of sins, alleged sins, lays out some activities which Americans won't be happy with, but in the end won't find crimes unless they stretch the law to fit the crime. Let's remember one other thing. Witnesses like Cohen can be used in a report because they'll never be cross-examined. If they were ever put in a court of law, they would be devastated on cross-examination. The same thing in Manafort, because these are all admitted liars. And you can't use an admitted liar as a credible and effective witness in an actual trial, but you can use them in a report, which is why it is so essential that both sides get a chance to respond and have their reports issued simultaneously.
Right. And go ahead, Kennedy.
Yes, Alan, in the sentencing memo from the Southern District of New York, they talk about Cohen's greed. They talk about his pattern of deception, which is something you just alluded to, and the difficulty in a court of law and having this be a believable witness. But what I found interesting was they said that he is not a cooperating witness and was not given a cooperating witness agreement. But it seems as though Cohen was operating as though he had such an agreement.
Of course, and you don't need an express agreement. What you need is an implicit agreement, a nod of the head. If you're cooperative and if you give us information, we will reciprocate and we will give you a benefit. Obviously, he didn't give them enough of a benefit to justify a substantial reduction of sentence, and it sounds now like he'll get certainly more than 2 or 3 years, maybe as many as 4 years in prison. It just shows how risky it is to be close to a man who gets elected president and who's very, very controversial. Virtually everybody who's been close to the president and the candidate is in trouble. And, the trouble is largely of their own making. They were not always the most honest and honorable people, but they would have lived their lives out had they not been close to this president, because the special counsel is obviously determined to.
And you have pointed out that the indictments.
Ellis, who presided over the Manafort case, said not only do these witnesses sometimes sing, but they sometimes even compose. That is, they improve the story to get a better deal.
And you have pointed out that the indictments and the pleas that have come down in this case have all materialized after the introduction of Robert Mueller as special counsel, that no one essentially has been charged with something that happened between the time that Donald Trump announced his candidacy for president and when Robert Mueller was appointed as special counsel.
Yeah, with a few exceptions, the Russians, but nobody is going to actually get the Russians into the jurisdiction of the United States. Some of the financial cases, but the only thing relating in any way to the president's campaign is the very weak campaign contribution argument. But for the most part, it's been lies that have been told after the special counsel got appointed. And he wasn't appointed in order to get people to lie. He was appointed to try to uncover actual crimes committed in the past before he was appointed. And by that standard, he has not been a success up to now. We have to wait and see and keep an open line to see whether or not he comes up with something in the report, which we haven't seen yet.
Mr. Gutfeld.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, if we're talking about hush money to paid for by an outside source, if that's the issue, what about the taxpayers paying hush money?
Well, the taxpayers are paying for prosecutors. The interesting thing about prosecutors is they actually make money because although it costs a lot to have prosecutors, they tend to get a lot of fines and a lot of forfeitures. And, prosecutors often operate at a profit. So I don't think that's as big an issue as some people try to make it out to be. I think the bigger issue is the fact that they have so much power. Let me tell you an interesting thing. If a defense lawyer or the president were ever to talk to a witness and say, look, if you give me good evidence that I can use, I will give you a benefit, they'd be in jail in a second. That's called witness tampering, and it's called obstruction of justice. But prosecutors can do that. Prosecutors can go to people and offer them an enormous amount. They can offer them money, freedom, life, if you give us good information. And there was one court, gutsy enough, about 10 years ago, a case called Stapleton, where the court said,